Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Blissful Life. If you want to meet a dynamic person who has been through much of the same things been through in terms of background, burnout, and a million other things, then you want to tune in today. My guest is Cami Red. She is the author of Dear Black Woman, which is a best-selling book, which is now turned into a podcast and a digital magazine. She has been doing all of this on an international level because she has two co-hosts who one is based in Paris and the other is based in London. And so she has this international reach to help Black women to reclaim and empower themselves from low things that's happened in their lives, from trauma to bad relationships to burnout. I just really am excited about this conversation today. I think you will be too. So thank you for tuning in and let's get started. Welcome back to the Blissful Life Podcast. I'm your host, Samantha Gregory. Today I have my guest, Cami Red. She is the author of Dear Black Woman, which is a series, which is a podcast, which is a digital magazine and a print magazine, internationally acclaimed. I'm so excited to have you on this podcast today, Cami. Thank you for being here. We're going to have an amazing conversation because we're all about sharing tips, strategies, and stories about how to transform burnout into bliss. And so Cami is going to share with us her story today. She's going to tell us how she has navigated life because we have quite a bit in common. We talked before, I was on her podcast, and well, actually, I did her.
My docu-series,
Yeah,
turning
yeah.
your trauma into your testimony, yeah.
Yes, so I was on that, and I'm excited that I was able to be a part of that project. And I am going to be on her podcast coming soon. But
Yes.
this is what this community is all about. It's about uplifting, supporting, and being pathways to wellness, healing, and empowerment. And Cami, I know that you, like we mentioned before, we've been through some of the same things in life, and we're actually both from Atlanta. That's one of the biggest things. But
ATLN,
yes, and
okay.
then we've met just recently, which is so ironic, but I think it was meant to be in this order, in this way, and we can bring more to the world of how Black women are healing. And when Black women heal, guess what? The world heals too.
Fortunately, yes.
Yeah, yes, that's the truth because
We carry everybody on our back.
we do, but we're releasing those people to heal themselves. That's why we're taking this time now to heal
I was going
ourselves.
to say that's the lesson for all of this is to learn to release others so that you can take care of yourself and
That
be
part.
the best version of yourself that you can be.
Absolutely, that part right there. So tell us about your story, how you got to this place. And I know that it's probably a lot of twists and turns, ups and downs. So we want to know as much as you want to share so that we can be encouraged and empowered to start our journey as well.
Ooh, I don't know how much time y'all got, but I go ahead and start for you. So initially, my life started as a chef. I have been a chef here in Atlanta for over 25 years. I believe food and wellness has always been my calling. I worked as a chef. I worked with some of the networks that are now based here. I've been all over the world as a chef. I lived in California. I've lived in Vegas as a chef. I've done all of that. However, that was not the only journey that God took me on with food. I'm a teenage mom, so a lot of the things that I've been through, I've dragged my now 25-year-old son with me through it.
Mhm.
And at about the age of 34, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. So one of the things that it taught me not to focus on the disease or focus on the diagnosis, but to focus on you and focus on your health. And from that experience, I went on to get my degree in nutritional science, which is what led me to become an RDN. But what I always tell people is I'm grateful for that because even before that moment in time, my weight always fluctuated. As an
Mhm.
African American woman, we already know that. Okay,
Mhm.
at my smallest, I was a size 6, but at my heaviest, I was a size 24.
Mhm.
So going into sort of opened several doors for me, and it helped me heal several wounds. It helped me heal the weight fluctuation battle that I was constantly fighting or trying to live up to societal standards. It
Mm-hmm.
taught me that it's not about what size you are, it's actually about the health and how healthy you
Yeah.
are, because we all come in different shapes and sizes.
Right.
But it also made me realize that as a chef, what I had been putting into other people's bodies as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that made me take a look at how I was preparing food, how I was actually serving food, what I was serving people, and how to prepare food in a way that was not only good, but was also good for them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, along this journey, as many of us have experienced, we go through ins and outs when it comes to relationships. During this time, I think I was experiencing, I was going through a divorce. I was just going through so much. And I didn't realize until later in life, I'm going to say probably a couple of years ago, that I was carrying so much trauma from
Mm.
all of the things that I had experienced. And recently I learned that a lot of the stuff that I had been through was because of my childhood trauma as well. And those are things that we don't really acknowledge.
Right.
Like, we don't talk about how the things that we experience at young ages, because we tend to gloss over or
Mm-hmm.
cover them up or subdue them, something like that. They never go away. So those wounds are still open. And it just takes one cut here and one cut there to open those wounds up again for you.
Right.
So along this journey, like I said, just experienced a lot of relationships, ins and outs, and a lot of highs and lows in my career. And up until last year, I thought I was good. Up until 2 years ago, I thought I was good. I was top of the line. I was a world famous chef. I had my own clothing line coming out. I had written a couple of books. I was doing all of that. But I found myself in a relationship that beat
Mm-hmm.
me down.
Mm-hmm.
And it took everything out of me. And at this old age, as I would like to say, I just couldn't imagine me going through that again.
Yeah.
And it did. I was in a relationship with a man that told me I was worthless. He told me I was useless. I was of no benefit to anybody. He constantly made me feel like I was less than. He
Mm-hmm.
isolated me from my job. He isolated me from my friends, from my family. He did all of the things that a narcissist and an abuser would do, but
Mm-hmm.
while steady trying to make himself look good on the outside and
Right.
make me look like I was crazy and like I was doing something wrong. And it just turned out that everything he had said to me at the beginning of our relationship, during our relationship, was all lies.
Mm-hmm.
Everything, down
Mm-hmm.
to his marital status. Because he asked me to marry him, gave me this big, beautiful diamond ring. And if you follow me on social media, you'll see pictures of it, because I did post it now. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But he was still married when he proposed to
Yeah.
me. So
Yeah.
let that sink in for a minute. And I
Mm-hmm.
often tell women we can ask as many questions as we want to. So when they say you didn't ask the right questions, oh yes, I did. I
Mm-hmm.
asked the right questions. But the problem was, when you're dealing with people who are manipulators and liars, it doesn't matter what questions you ask.
Right.
It's still gonna come out the way it's gonna come out.
Mm-hmm.
So after this relationship, I found myself where I had to just run, and I picked up and just took my clothes, packed my clothes. I left everything. And like I
Mm-hmm.
said, y'all, I'd been a chef for over 20 years, so you can imagine the type of culinary stuff I had. So I
Wow.
left all of that in Texas, left my house, left everything, even left a car, and
Mm-hmm.
came back home to Georgia. And within a month, and me, I thought I was coming back home to Georgia to be a chef and a nutritionist again. But I was in therapy, and my therapist gave me an assignment. The first assignment was to Google myself so that I could see who I was and
Mm-hmm.
reclaim my worth and reclaim my value.
Mm-hmm.
Had to write a whole assignment on myself. That was the hardest thing in the world,
Wow.
especially when I was in a mindset that I was worthless, that I was of no benefit to anybody. And my friends were angry at me. Like they were angry at me for allowing this man to put me in this position and in this place. So the next assignment that my therapist gave me was to write love letters to myself.
Yeah.
And I took those love letters and I gave them to her, and she was so touched by them and she was tearing up, and she showed them to her colleague, and she came back and said, my colleague wants to show these to one of his clients, but I told him no. And I said, why did you say no? She said, because I got another assignment for you. And I was like, okay. And she said, I want you to take these letters, because I know being an author is your little side gig. That's what you do to release creativity. And I want you to turn these letters into a book. And I was like, I don't want people to know what all the stuff that I'm saying and all the stuff that I had been through. So I thought about it, and I prayed about it, and I asked the universe to show me and give me signs and just direct my path. And I took the letters, I took out all of my personal information and made it a little bit general. And I published Dear Black Woman, which is my latest book. And from there, and I like to tell people, you know how you come back and you have a plan, and you got a plan on how you gonna do this and how you gonna do that and how you gonna do this. God had a whole nother plan, a whole other plan. And not to be super religious, but you know, it was not my design, and it was not what I wanted. So what he planned for me was all by way of me going through all of this trauma and being able to write and give these love letters, not only to myself, but to every other Black woman out there in the world. And from there, it was crazy, because let me give you a timeline on how all of this has recently happened, because it ain't been as long as people think. I left Texas at the end of May and the beginning of June. I was a Black woman in July. Okay. Wow. Yeah. July of this year. Do you understand? Okay. In August of this year, I got a call from a young lady in France who wanted to bring me over to France because my book, Dear Black Woman, had made it all the way to Paris. Okay. Unbeknownst me knowing all of this. Okay. So then I prayed about it again. I said, okay, God, I don't know what you got going on in my life, but clearly this book was something poignant and meaningful for people outside of myself. And I didn't realize what you was doing. So in September, myself, Nicole, and Lauren, these are two different Black women from two different countries. Nicole lives in France. Lauren lives in London. Both of them have a copy of my book, Dear Black Woman. So I asked them, I said, hey, how would you all feel about being on a podcast and helping me talk to Black women, not just in the United States, but globally? Because from my understanding, from listening to you, from listening to the feedback, from listening to Nicole, it's not just a United States Black woman thing.
Right.
It's a global thing that we all experience. And from there, things have just taken off. I've since authored another book called Turning Your Trauma into Your Testimony. And I'm in school now to get my master's in psychology so that I can help people, because I realize it's all interconnected. It's all intertwined. A lot of stuff that I was doing as a nutritionist was also dealing with other people's trauma as well, because it shows up in the way we eat, in the way we treat ourselves, in our behaviors. It shows up in all of that. So for me, I was like, okay, I see where we going. I see what's going. I see what we doing.
Yes.
And then Nicole mentioned to me how we don't have enough time in our show, because our show is 1 hour each week. We don't have enough time to cover everything. And Lauren started asking me, can we play snippets of videos from other women who've experienced? And I was like, okay, wait a minute, we doing a lot here. Okay, I'm rolling with this. I love it. So my book, Turning Your Trauma into Your Testimony, was my way of, and it is not a how-to book. It's literally telling you how to take your trauma and how to turn it into a book. And if you should so desire, how to self-publish it as well. So
Okay.
it's instructions in it, and it has a journal that goes with it. It's a 30-day journal that's got
Mhm.
writing prompts that are not only in the book, but in the journal to help you write out
Mhm.
all of the things that you have been through. So at this time, I was like, okay, so I'm listening to all these women talk about how Dear Black Woman is affecting them. And on my TikTok, I was interviewing people who had listened to the book on Audible, who had read the book. And this one lady said, she said, Kim, I got 3 notebooks dedicated to Dear Black Woman. And I was like, you got 3 notebooks. Why? She said, because each letter is a lesson. And I just be sitting up there
Mm.
crying and writing, and everything I read, I'm like, oh my God, she's talking to me. Oh my God, so then I said, okay, let me ponder on this. So then I created a journal for Dear Black
Mhm.
Woman too.
Mhm.
So now it's 2 Black Woman the letters and Dear Black Woman the journal, so that not only can you take notes as you read each of these letters, but you can also write love letters to yourself.
Mhm. Wow.
So what's really important to me is letting people address, or letting us Black women
Mhm.
address the things that we have been through,
Sure.
acknowledge those things so that we can in turn use those things to benefit not only ourselves, but to
Mhm.
help benefit others. So there's a lesson in everything. And it's so crazy because this morning somebody posted on Facebook how God will take you through things just so it can be an experience and a lesson, and so that you can utilize it for someone else. And I swear to God, I posted up under it, preach somebody, because this is my life right here. A lot of the stuff that I had been through, I wrote about it. I
Mhm.
wrote it in my love letters because I had to tell myself, hey, Cammie, hey, girl, hey, Black woman.
Mhm.
It's the very first lesson in the book is perfection ain't real.
Mm.
Okay, you and I both know how we walk around with this perfectionism syndrome.
Yes.
Because society has put on us that we got to look a certain way. We got to
Mhm.
talk a certain way. You got to have this degree to do that. And you got to do this and you got to do that. And all these hurdles we feel like we have to jump over in order to be successful. And that's not true.
Yes, and you're right. And there's so much to unpack here. Woo! And as you were talking, that question popped up in my head, discussion points, etc. And so, what I would love to do is backtrack before we go forward.
Go right ahead.
Um, in terms of dealing with the childhood trauma and food,
Mhm.
the weight and food, because I totally relate. And then we'll talk about another element of food as well. But in terms of the trauma that we suppress as children, because we're just trying to live our life. We're trying to have some happy moments here, happy moments there, and that becomes the norm where you're just looking for ways to be happy in your childhood, regardless of the traumatic experiences that you're having. And you just push them aside because your ego is giving you the tools you need to survive.
Mhm.
And that means
It's surviving instead of thrive. To learn how to stop surviving and learn how to thrive and live.
exactly. So let's talk about the mask that is created in our childhood that keeps us from learning who we are authentically,
Mhm.
prevents us from thriving. And when we get to the point now in our adulthood where we want to break out and release and rip the mask off, it's okay, wait, there's a layer of mask that we're living under. So let's talk about that a little bit and how suppressing childhood trauma affects our physical, mental, emotional health, and our relationships. So when you became aware of the childhood trauma, how did that affect you, and what did you decide to do from that
It
point?
it made sense. Like it made sense. It
Hmm.
all made sense. And I'll give you an example. I was raised by a single father,
Hmm.
and a lot of my dealings in relationships came based on how my dad treated me.
Absolutely. Yep.
And that was, and a lot of people think, and I know if any of my family hear this, they probably be like, oh no, you had it this way. No, I did not. One of the people who, very few people who realize the things that I've been through in my childhood is my grandmother. So
Hmm.
even at 95 years old, my grandmother is still trying to protect me because that's what she's done my
Hmm.
whole life.
Mm-hmm.
My dad had a series of marriages, and he, again, single father. None of his wives ever liked me. Always
Mm-hmm.
felt like they had to compete with me, treated
Mm-hmm.
me like I was nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, my dad placated to those situations.
Sure.
Instead of protecting his daughter, he did what he could to make his wives happy.
Mm-hmm.
And it gave me a sense of not feeling worthy, not feeling loved, not having value, or not feeling like I was good enough to be loved. My father placated to those relationships. And instead of protecting me as his daughter, he actually tried to please his wives, which again is why I felt the way I felt in relationships, why I felt worthless, why I would let men treat me any kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that my therapist and I identified is my relationship with money and finances comes from my upbringing as well. My
Mm-hmm.
dad was financially stable, a little bit, we'll say wealthy. So his only way of showing love was through money. He was
Mm-hmm.
unable, like I come from two very emotionally disconnected parents. So I don't know. I never got the love, the hugs, the words, the affirmations, and things that I needed from my parents. I
Sure.
always got them from my grandmothers.
Mm-hmm.
So those are ways that also showed up in my relationship with others. My mother left me when I was 3. So
Mm-hmm.
I deal with some rejection and some abandonment issues. And like I like to tell people, I don't just have issues with men, I have issues with women too.
Got it.
So
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. And it's so interesting and sad, I guess, in a way, how these experiences shape you, but they also, I
you
learned,
froze.
am I still frozen?
Okay, there
Oh,
you go. You back.
okay.
Woo, you
Okay.
froze. I don't know what's going on. Wait, it's the energy that it don't want this story to get out.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. But we're gonna get the story out because that
Well,
is
we
this
most definitely gonna get this out now.
right.
You this just made me want to do it even more.
Exactly. But what I was saying is I know that it feels unfortunate, it feels sad when we have to go through these things. But what I learned, even from my own journey, is that oftentimes the parents that we're born to, the circumstances under which we're born, they are a catalyst for us to begin this journey of finding out who we truly are,
Hmm.
remembering who we are. But those experiences are the things that had to push us out there because if we're in this comfortable place, if we had some lessons we never would have learned, experiences we never would have had, and even though it feels traumatic, and yes, it was, I would never discount that. It was definitely traumatic, but it was also a catalyst for
Yeah.
us to become who we are now.
And in learning this about myself, I had to take a look at myself as a parent as well. And
Yes.
the fact that I was a teen mom, it made me have to have some very hard conversations with my son. So, for
Hmm.
instance, you talked about being on my docu series. The very last episode in the docu series is going to be my story, and the
Hmm.
person interviewing me is actually my child.
Hmm.
So it really is giving that full circle of these are the things that I've been through, but these are also the things that I know I inflicted on you. And
Mm.
I'm working to break that generational curse of
Yes.
keeping my, because one of the things I've learned from studying about trauma is it passes down 7 generations.
Mhm.
Trauma that I'm feeling is not just my trauma, it's my father's trauma, it's my mother's trauma, it's the trauma of both of my grandmothers, it's
Mhm.
the trauma of my great grandmothers, it's all of that.
Mhm.
So it's affecting me in this generation. And that's why I say us as Black women, we carry so much because can you imagine? We're still carrying trauma from slavery that
Right.
we did not even experience.
Exactly. I believe that with all my heart. And it's so important for us because I was having a conversation years ago with my brother, and I was like, as a people, we have never had our Exodus experience. We've never had that. We've never been able to strip off the layers of the mindset of slavery. We've never had the opportunity to we've had a wilderness experience, but not together enough so that we could have that release of the slave. And so it's just
What's
continued.
crazy is I don't think the problem is not us not wanting it. It's that we still live in a country where it just got exposed this last presidential election.
Right,
We still live in a country where we live in fear. So
right,
that Exodus experience, it hasn't happened for us because we've been able to. We
right.
haven't, it's just not possible at this point in time.
Hmm.
On Dear Black Woman, we talked last week about political barriers and things that, why Kamala didn't win. And I
Hmm.
had research, and what I learned is no Black woman has ever governed a state in the United States. So we're asking the country to do something that we haven't even done on a state level yet. That in certain states, they are just now electing Black women to sit on Senate, to sit in office. Simultaneously, 2 Black women are in the Senate, which has never happened at the same time. There are hurdles and barriers that we are still crossing in 2025. And we are, what is it, almost 400, 500, 600 years away from slavery. So those things, we have to keep that in mind when we talk about a healing exodus for us as Black people. We're still jumping over hoops and hurdles to be seen and to be heard. So there's never been a healing for us. There's in certain places, we're still sundown town. And we're in 2025.
Right.
So that's why, like I tell people often, somebody asks me, why is the book called Dear Black Woman? I said, because that's all I can relate to.
That part. And that's so important to understand, and to convey. Is our experience is not ever going to be your experience, whether you're white, Hispanic, Asian, or whatever. It's never going to be that. You'll never understand this experience because you don't want to. First of all, you can't. Second of all, and it's
And
not
then
for you.
what's crazy is you expect us to understand your experience. You want
Right.
us to help you with yours and fight for you on yours, and you get mad because we don't want to stand with you. But where are you all when it's time to stand with us?
But that's
Where is everybody? Because based on this last presidential election, y'all didn't stand with us at all.
But that's still that
Nobody.
colonizer mindset where you must assimilate and you must adopt and adapt to the oppressor's customs, traditions, mindset, and you must make it a study of who they are and forget about who you are.
And that's what I learned about by doing this podcast with Lauren and Nicole is it doesn't matter where we are in the world. It's the same situation for us all.
Right.
And in me doing this Turning Your Trauma into Your Testimony docuseries, I met so many Black women from all over the world. I met a girl in Australia. I met a lady in the Netherlands. It's crazy to me the things that we go through, no matter what continent we are on.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it's so important to understand the connection there and to continuously encourage one another, inspire one another, and empower them to empower themselves, because that is really the only way we can say we're empowering people, but you have to empower them to empower themselves in order for that change to really come, because otherwise they'll just be mimicking what you do, but without having the same experience.
It's the saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you
Right.
can't make them drink.
Right.
So you can teach a man to fish, but I mean, you can help a man fish, but he only gonna, well, anyway, they had a song, and what they were saying was, you can teach a man to fish, but he'll fish.
You can give a man a fish.
You can give a man a fish and he'll fish for a day, but you can teach a man to fish and he'll be wealthy for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
Those are things that we have to learn. Yes, I can teach, I can give you the knowledge, but I want you to take what I'm giving you and I want you to turn it into something, and I want you to grow and learn and be. And I also want you to take that and help somebody else. So you passing it down. That I'm telling you, I wrote Dear Black Woman. And I wrote it, and I feel like that was my fish to give y'all. But I wrote Turning Your Trauma into Your Testimony, and that was me teaching everyone how to fish. Because it was me saying, I'm going to give y'all this fish. I'm going to help y'all get through whatever you're going through. But I'm going to teach you how to take what you're going through and turn it into something that's more meaningful.
That part, yes. And I appreciate that you're doing this for us and giving us the tools. And I think that's what it requires, tools. And you even teaching us how to use the tools, et cetera, and to end up becoming prosperous because of it. To your message, your testing to your testimony, and turning all of that into a resource for yourself. Because if anything, we are resourceful people. And so we're going to learn to use these resources and we're going to learn to profit from those resources as well.
A lot of people think that turning your test into your testimony book, it literally lays out how to go through and how to publish your own book. It tells you the platforms, it tells you what to do, it tells you how to do it. It just lays it all out for you because I can teach you and you can pay me because I got my own publishing company.
Sure,
so you can bring me your book and I'll publish it, which I don't have a problem doing. That's one of the reasons I opened my own publishing company so that I can help other Black women live out their dreams because everybody ain't technically savvy.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But I wrote this book. Like I had a client come to me and say she wanted to write a book. And I said, here's where you're going to start. And I didn't even go into my price ranges or any of that. I said, I want you to go to Amazon and I want you to get my book. I want you to get the book and I want you to get the journal. It's going to cost you less than $20. And I did that on purpose. Okay. I want you to read the book. I want you to utilize the journal while you're reading the book. The reason why I want you to do that is because I'm telling you how to do it on your own. If at any point throughout this process you feel like you can't do it on your own, I want you to circle back to me and let's talk about how I can help you. Then we'll talk about my pricing and what it is that I can do. But before we get into this discussion, let me show you how to do this all by yourself.
And that's important. And I think too, it also gauges commitment because we have to be committed to ourselves, which part of the whole process of becoming the best version of yourself is going back, healing the trauma. And after you heal, you've started that process is learning self-trust, learning self-compassion, self-commitment, all the things that we give to other people, we have to begin to give to ourselves. And that will drive us. It will propel us into being empowered for ourselves and doing these things. So whether it's going to read the book, creating the journal, because the writing process is not easy. And being a ghostwriter is not easy.
And I do that. That's what I told. Like I told this one girl, I said, just keep the journal. I said, because if you feel like you can't write this book, what the journal helps me do is it helps me ghostwrite for you.
Right.
So now all you're going to do is send me my own book that you done filled out. And I'm going to take your words and I'm going to turn that into your story for you. So that's why I tell people, you got to take this journey. See, what people don't understand is you got to do it on your own first.
Yes. You have to. You
got to do it on your own first. You cannot expect somebody to hold your hand through this process. Yes, therapy is out there and you should go to therapy. But a good therapist is going to tell you that you have to graduate from therapy at some point in life. And they give you the skills so that you can graduate. They're going to tell you to set up a circle around you that you can call when you're having an off day. They're going to tell you the steps and the mechanisms and the different coping things that you can do to get through some of the hard times and some of the triggers. They're going to tell you all of that because their job is not to keep you as a client, to help you heal. Because like I constantly say, healing is a journey. It's not a destination. We have tough days every day. I wake up some days crying because I'm in an emotional state because something the day before might have triggered me. Even when I'm having good times, I'm triggered because I feel like I'm a lone wolf. So when I have good times, I'm triggered because there's nobody to celebrate those good times with. And there's nobody to tell me, oh, I'm proud of you. My mother is starting to do that. Like she's starting to, when she sees things about me, because I'm to the point where I don't share a lot anymore. So now she's starting to see things about me and she'll text me and say, I'm just really proud of you for the stuff that you're doing. And that's her way of reconciling the trauma that was inflicted on me
Mm-hmm.
45 years ago when I was a kid. You understand? So
Yeah.
I get that. I understand that. And I love my mom for trying to go through the process of not only healing herself, but healing her children as well.
Mm-hmm.
When my mom recognized that me and my younger sister were taking the steps to get therapy and taking the steps to go through and get this healing, she realized that there was a lot that was going to fall on her by way of the stuff that she did.
Yeah.
And a lot of things that my sister had endured, a lot of things that I had endured stemmed from her. So
Mm-hmm.
she took the steps and she's taking the steps to rectify that. Like when I got back home, like I was telling you, when I moved back home from Texas, one of the things that my mother had a conversation with me about was her regrets in life. And
Mm-hmm.
she made it very clear to let me know that one of her regrets was leaving me. And she
Mm-hmm.
felt like she should have never done that.
Yeah.
But also she felt like she didn't have a choice. So by her explaining that to me and by her talking to me about that, I understood where she was coming from. And I
Mm-hmm.
understood what she meant by that. And that made me look at my parenting again as a mother and talk to my son about some of the things that I had done and
Mm-hmm.
apologize to him for some of the choices I made and explain to him that in some of these cases, I felt like I didn't have a choice.
And that's so important to be able to acknowledge that with your children,
Mm-hmm.
to receive that. I'm almost jealous that your mom is able to at least speak those words and share that with you, and that you're able to do that for your son. Again, breaking those generational curses and making sure that doesn't go forward like that. So I appreciate that part of your journey. So tell me, before we wrap up, because we may have to do a part two.
That's okay. I'm always for that. Listen, okay?
But tell us a bit more about the food side and how food informs how we deal with trauma and steps we can take to move into a place of self-care.
So listen, we don't often recognize our relationship with food, and it's cultural. A lot of us out here suffer from high blood pressure and high cholesterol, and doctors would have you think that it's a generational or a
Genetic.
genetic disorder. No,
Hmm.
it's not. Okay, let me be very clear with you on what it is. It is a generational behavior disorder, not a genetic disorder where you're predestined for it. We eat like our parents and our grandparents eat.
Yeah.
So you're taught to eat certain things. And our culture, everything is around food. We celebrate around food. We have funerals when we're sad, food is involved. So we are mentally associating food with everything that we
Hmm.
go through. So when we're sad, what do? We eat,
Eat.
we binge eat, we eat the bad things, we eat stuff that we don't have no business eating. And I'm guilty of it still to this day. I ain't even gonna lie to you, okay? So that's why I said it's an ongoing process, regardless of what you know and how you grow. You're continuing to heal and continuing to go through it. But I know, and what,
Hmm.
like they say, when you know better, you do better. That's
Hmm.
one of the things that I have to always keep in mind is that I know better, which is my desire to move out of the country has a lot to do with the fact that I want access to food that is not chemically laced. I
Yes.
want access to food that is actually healthy for me. But I digress. When we're dealing with a lot of the trauma that we deal with, it is deeply associated with food. It is
Hmm.
deeply associated with the things that we do and how we respond to food. When we're stressed, we don't eat. When we were going through things as children, maybe food was withheld. Everybody is different. So I'm not going to say
Sure.
that this is all, everything is for everybody. No. But these are some of the things that are exhibited when you're dealing with
Hmm.
emotional eating, which is why it's so important for you to first acknowledge your trauma so that
Hmm.
you can also see how it affects you in other areas of your life.
Absolutely. Yes, thank you for saying that. And which then is exacerbated because of society's view of bodies and
Mhm.
what they should look like and the expectations, even within the family, because I know I grew up and I was almost bullied into being smaller, thinner, petite, because that is how my dad thought we should be. And he would shame us if we ate too much or if we looked like we were going overboard. And so he would say little things. And so that really was like,
So
okay.
let me give you an example. I was a chunky kid,
Mm,
and by today's standards, if you really look back on it, I wasn't chunky at all. Okay, I
right.
was just hippie and buddy.
Same.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
let's just call it what it is. I was shaped like it. Now I got an hourglass shape, and I've
Right.
never had a waist. I've always wanted to work in food, but I wasn't
Mhm.
allowed to work in fast food restaurants growing up because my father did not want me to be big. He didn't want me around food like that where I would get comfortable with being eating certain things. And my nickname is Meat, just so we are very clear.
Wow.
Okay. Do you see how it's still associated with food?
Hmm.
Everything deals with food.
Hmm.
Everything deals with the trauma of what food is doing around food, how food is, all of that stuff. Those things are very prevalent in my
Hmm.
life still. Because here, still to this day, I'll be 45 in 6 months, and it is still about food. Like I
Hmm.
said, my nickname is Meat. So what does that tell you?
Right. Look, I'm gonna need you to release that nickname. Say, hey, mm-mm.
Let me be very clear with you on that. The only person that still calls me that is my father. Okay.
Okay,
The
gotcha.
rest of the world call me Cammy because
Got it.
that's really my nickname. My whole first name is almost the same as the president, the
Mm,
vice president. My first name is Camila. So
mm-hmm,
when it was so funny listening to people try to pronounce her name and
mm-hmm.
knowing that I had gone through that very same thing my entire life. You
Right.
understand? So those things play a part. So, like I said, do you see what I say about not when you going through healing and when you going through getting over that stuff, your family isn't necessarily going through it. So they
Right.
keep some of the same behaviors and some of the same habits, not
Mhm.
realizing how they affect you.
Absolutely. And then, but the other thing too is getting to the place where it no longer affects you because you know who you are
That's
and that,
exactly it.
and you're no longer identifying with family sometimes, longer identifying with that version of who they created you to
They
be.
who they think you are or who they
Right.
desire you to be. Because
Right.
again, the reason why my daddy called me Meat still is because my daddy still sees me as his 10-year-old daughter. You
Hmm.
understand?
Yeah.
And again, I'm not 10 years old. I got
Right.
a 25-year-old son. I'm not that little girl. I'm
Right.
so I'm gonna let you have that until you decide to get your healing. But I
Mhm.
don't identify as that. So I'm gonna
Yeah.
let you can't, hey,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna change you because you in your 70s. At this point, that's between you and God. And it's honestly how I feel, because that ain't got nothing to do with me.
Absolutely. Good for you. And that's a testament. That's a testimony. Look, they may call you something, but you don't have to answer. And
Yep.
your identity is what you create and not what other people have projected onto you. So
Mhm.
thank you again, Cami, for being with us, talking with us, telling us about your story and the process of healing that you've gone through.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for just
Y'all go get my book, okay?
yes, it is
It's on Amazon, but if I don't know when it's gonna air, whenever it airs, here's the deal. If it airs before December, you got until November the 20th to order it off of my website. If you order it off of my website, not only do you get the book, Dear Black Woman, but you also get the journal, the Dear Black.
mhm,
You see how thick this journal is?
mhm.
You get the Dear Black Woman journal with it for free. So just remember that. My website is redladies.com. That's spelled RED, like my last name, like the color red, but with two D's, ladies, LADYS. Go order the book. If you order it before November 20th, you get the journal for free. So boom, there you go.
There you go. She said it, and you got to take advantage of it. And yes, it will be out before the 20th, so people will
Okay.
have an
Now
opportunity.
it is on Amazon, but I can't. If you order it from Amazon, I'm very appreciative. Make sure you leave a review on Amazon too.
Mhm.
But I can't promise you no journal if you
Right.
order it on Amazon. So you got
That
to
part.
come to my website, order the book, and then y'all check out our podcast, Dear Black Woman, and check out our digital publication, which is dearblackwoman.me. And if you order the book, you'll understand why it's called Dear Black Woman Died.
Where are you on social media?
I'm everywhere. I swear to God, when my therapist made me Google myself, that was probably the most astounding experience I ever had. On TikTok, I'm Cami Red. On IG, Facebook, I'm Cami Red for life. On LinkedIn, I'm Camila Redding Hinton. You can find me on YouTube. I'm Cami Red. Samantha is on my YouTube page too. Go watch my docu-series turning your trauma into your testimony so you can see Samantha's story too.
Absolutely. So now we'll have all these connection points in the description so you can connect with Cami, get her book, order from the website to get the free journal, and follow her on social media. Connect with her, say hello, say you saw her on the Blissful Life podcast, and we will be so thrilled that you were able to connect with her.
And if you don't get my journal after, I'm doing this just for Samantha. If you get my journal before November 20th, in December, I will put a coupon code up. So you got to follow me on social media so you can find it. You're going to be able to use Blyssful Life as a coupon code to get a discount on the journal book bundle.
Thank you so much, Cami. Thank you for being here, for sharing your story, and for empowering us to empower ourselves. And thank you all again for listening to this episode of the Blissful Life Podcast. Please be sure to this episode, leave a review, and be sure to subscribe as well, because we want to spread the word that you can transform your burnout into bliss and that you can live the most radical self-care life possible. Take care, and we'll see you again soon.